Hello, everyone. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio Network, a subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Our mantra is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. The views of a guest may not represent those of the host of the station. Folks, I have with me today the wonderful William Cooper. He is podcast host of Books and More with William Cooper. And I have to tell you, that is a great podcast. I do listen to it. And William Cooper was on last year when he talked about his book, How America Works and Why It Doesn't. William Cooper is an attorney, a journalist, and he's an award-winning author. His writings have appeared in hundreds of publications globally, including the New York Times, San Francisco Chronicle, CNN, Newsweek, Toronto Star, and Jerusalem Post. Publishers Weekly calls his commentary about American politics a compelling rallying cry for democratic institutions under threat in America. And you can visit William online at will-cooper.com, and that will be in the blog notes. But William Cooper is here to talk about his new book, which I highly recommend. I really enjoyed reading it, and so did my son. The name of the book is The Trial of Donald H. Rumsfeld, a novel by William Cooper. Welcome back, William.
Thank you, Betsy. So good to be here. Appreciate you having me.
Oh, my pleasure, and thanks for coming back and sending me the book. I really enjoyed this book, William. I think it's a tongue-in-cheek type of book. I don't know, like I was telling you before we started recording, I don't know if you have a comedy streak in you, but this book does have some comedy in it. And I really enjoyed reading it. How did you come up with this story, which is, I like what you wrote in your book. Can I quote your book? I have to quote this, William. I love this. It's author's note. It's right in the beginning. It says, this story is a mix of things that were said and things that weren't, things that happened and things that didn't, people who changed the world, and characters devised from scratch. It is therefore a work of fiction. All Rumsfeld Rules are quoted verbatim from the book of the same name written by Donald H. Rumsfeld. And you have a Rumsfeld rule right in the beginning. I just love this. The two most important rules of Washington, D.C. are Rule 1, the cover-up is worse than the event. Rule 2, no one ever remembers the first rule. I thought that was comical right there. So how did you come up with this story?
Thank you. So
You're welcome.
Rumsfeld was when I was just learning about politics in my early 20s. I think I was 20 when September 11th, 2001 happened. And Rumsfeld was Secretary of Defense, and that woke me up to politics in a big way and to international relations in a big way. And Rumsfeld was front and center in that. So I learned a lot about all of that through his press conferences and through a lot of the things that he was saying. So he was a very central figure for me and a formative part of my learning about international affairs. So he stuck with me, and I found him to be a very fascinating person. I thought he was a really strong mix of explosive characteristics, some of them good, some of them bad, and I just found him really, really interesting, and I thought he would be a great person to be at the center of a novel. And with historical fiction and alternative history, you can take real people and real events and then mix them up with your own inventions and ideas, and that's what I did with the book. But I just found him interesting, and that was the driving factor.
Well, I think you did an excellent job, in my opinion.
Thank you.
I really didn't know. You're welcome. I didn't know much about Donald Rumsfeld. Actually, I forgot about him, and I asked my son, "Who is he?" And I had to, Google him because I don't know. He just skipped my mind. I needed a refresher, and I just envy not just you, William, but all the writers that I interview, because I just think everyone has a different creative process. But just to take a figure, and Donald Rumsfeld was a real figure, and then you make a story about him that is, it's make believe the trial in the book, but there are some real aspects to the story, and just the dialogue. Like, how do you come up with the dialogue in your head? Because that always fascinates me. I find it fascinating. Maybe I'm weird.
No, it's a good question. I don't really know how I come up with it. I just get really excited and interested in a story, and I think about it a lot. So over the course of, say, 9 months or so of writing a book, I'm thinking about it a lot, and I'm just, a couple hours a day, to some degree or another, whether I'm actively writing or not, I'm thinking about it, and so I just get into the story and get excited about it, and then when I'm in that mindset, I'm thinking, okay, well, what is this person thinking? What are these people saying to each other? And it just comes out.
So sometimes I guess people have a natural talent then. Like it just comes to people. That's amazing.
Yeah, my talents are very narrow and limited. I'm terrible at many, many things. Writing is always something that I've enjoyed and has come natural for me for whatever reason. It's just how I am. So and you're talented at interviewing people, and that's what you do. And among the things that I feel like I'm good at, writing with that narrow list, writing is one of them.
Well, thank you for your compliment. Very kind of you. And I'm so glad you sent me the book. And came back on my show to discuss this book. So how much research did you do for this book, William? How long did it take you to research for this book?
I knew a lot about Rumsfeld already because of what I mentioned.
Right.
And I was very passionate about international affairs for quite some time, number of years, while Rumsfeld was Secretary of Defense. So I knew a lot about him. And that all fed into the book. And then on top of that, around the time of writing the book, he has a really big biography, and I read lots of other sources. So I would say actual research for the book was probably maybe 100 hours, but hundreds of hours on top of that of absorbing that era, over time, during that time and subsequently. I'm a full-time attorney, so I don't have time to embark on big research projects. I don't write 800-page biographies. I write about things that I'm already familiar with, already thinking about, typically. Or if in fiction, you can just, tell stories, so you don't need to do a lot of research. But in terms of the factual background, a lot of it for this book I was already familiar with.
Well, I think it's a fast-moving book. I mean, I couldn't put it down. I just was really very interested in it, and I said, well, this is just a great book. And it's different from your other book that I read that I had mentioned. Do you think, in your own opinion, that you have a comedy streak in you? Because some of the book is comical.
I think I do not think I'm particularly talented as a comedic writer, to answer your question. I don't. I think there can be a little bit of a flourish in there that I'm okay with, but I don't think of myself as being talented as a comedic writer. I think with Rumsfeld, some of the thoughts he had and the things he would say, and there was some exaggeration and flourish in the book, made them absurd and potentially comedic. But no, it'd be great to be a comedic writer. I think it's a cool way to approach writing, but I don't think that that's something where I really do have a talent.
Well, I think it's there, William. From
thank you.
reading reading this book. Yeah, I really do. I never really, to be honest with you, I never heard of Rumsfeld Rules, and I really liked reading them. Do you mind if I quote another one? Because this guy was comical. I mean, in a way, had a to me, in my opinion, had a grandiose personality, but he also had a comedy side to it, like this rule. Don't do or say things you would not like to see on the front page of the Washington Post. Well, I think a lot of politicians need to read that rule.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
That's for sure.
All the time.
Yeah. I was really, I enjoyed the book, but I was really fascinated with the part, and I don't want to give the book away, the trial part, but you are an attorney. So can people in office, can they really be tried on charges if they gave false information about a country having weapons of war when they didn't? Can they really be put on trial for that, or is this just the story that you had in your head?
It's very unlikely that somebody would go on trial for that, for a couple of reasons. One, it's not a typical legal claim, and number two, it's very hard to get the leaders of major countries ever to be on trial in international courts. Part of why I chose that for the book was actually to show that the prosecutor was overreaching and bringing a claim that wasn't typical and wouldn't normally be brought. And that was actually a conscious part of the story that I wanted to include, that the prosecutor was going after him, the man, not bringing a fair case on the law. So that was a part of the equation. It's a good question. Yeah, I think it's very unlikely that would ever be.
I was thinking that, and I said, well, that's a question I have to ask William, because I don't know, about international law. And I was just, for any country, the United States, whatever country, to go to war and lose thousands of lives, destruction because of a lie, is just so mind-boggling to me. That's the word I can think of right now. It's really sad. And I just interviewed a Vietnam veteran, and he gave a history on Vietnam War, what he thought, and it's so sad, that war. And then going to Iraq and Afghanistan, if they didn't have weapons of destruction, they're assuming that they did. And that's why I liked it in the book, because Rumsfeld in your story was like, let him think that they have it. He really wanted to go to war, Was he that power hungry? Like it seems like he wanted to be in control and be in charge of everything.
I think that was a part of his personality. And like I said in the beginning, I thought he was a mix of really powerful characteristics, both positive and negative. And I think one of his traits was he did love power. He wanted to be president. He wanted, as Secretary of Defense, he exercised his power in a really robust way. And that was part of who he was. And I don't necessarily think it was a nefarious intention behind it. I think he thought of himself as a talented person who could do good things for the world, and therefore having power and making big decisions was a good thing for the world. I don't think it was trying to cause harm in a big way. But he was power hungry in the traditional sense of that concept. And one of his flaws was overestimating his own ability to make decisions and to make things happen. I think he was too confident that he could transform Iraq from a dictatorship into a democracy. And that was a defining part of his tenure as Secretary of Defense, was that overconfidence and misjudgment.
Yes. And I'm going to read another rule, Rumsfeld Rule. The absence of evidence is not necessarily evidence of absence. I mean, don't ask me why, William, that just cracks me up. It's almost like you don't need evidence. Do you think that's what he's trying to say in that rule?
Well, what was going on with that statement was in Iraq, he was very focused on regime change. I think he thought the world would be much better off without Saddam Hussein. I think he was right about that, all else being equal, but not all else wasn't equal. The cost of regime change was enormous in the human impact. But he was pushing for it. He really wanted it. He thought it was the right decision. And people would say, well, there's no evidence of weapons of mass destruction. There's no evidence of weapons of mass destruction. You haven't proven that. And you need to prove that to go to war. And his response was, well, just because there's not evidence in the world that we can show you that's public and that's out there that we've found of weapons of mass destruction doesn't mean there isn't weapons of mass destruction. There are things in the world that exist without certain people being aware of evidence that they exist. So it was an intellectual concept that he used, accurate in a general sense, but I also think misleading in another sense. It's very hard to disprove anything. To prove a negative is very hard. So in some ways it was a little misleading too. But I think what that line was getting at was, okay, fine. We don't have evidence of weapons of mass destruction, but just because we don't have evidence doesn't mean that Saddam doesn't have it.
Right. And that's why they went there to find it.
That was a big reason.
One of the reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a multitude of reasons, and that was one of them.
Yeah. I also found it, and folks, you have to remember that this book is fiction, that the way you portray George Bush, President George Bush, the son, as having a alcohol problem in the book. And, him going out of, almost like out of control, because in the book about a drinking problem, did you, oh, that's the question I want to ask. Why did you have that in the book? Did you want to portray George Bush that way?
That was all for entertainment. And for the
Oh,
story,
yeah, okay.
yeah, I as I said, it's a novel, very clear it's
Right.
fiction. I said in the author's notes, it's a mix
Yes.
of things that happened and things that didn't. That was an invention. Obviously, George Bush did not step down from the presidency because of alcoholism.
Right.
So that was all manufactured for the story, and I thought it was an important part of the story, but that's what it was. It wasn't real.
Right. And I'm reading the book from. I read so many books, William, and what I remember, I'm like, wow. I said, like, I could see why you put it in there as part of the story. And I don't want to give the whole book away because I want people to buy your book. But that's what makes your book an excellent book, because the way you just blend everything just makes it a fascinating story. And you know what? I really enjoyed how you portrayed how Donald Rumsfeld loved his wife. I thought that was so sweet in the story, that he really loved his wife and was very devoted, and she was devoted to him.
Yeah, I wanted, again, my thought about Rumsfeld is he's a mix of good things and bad things, and I wanted to portray him as a human being who makes mistakes but also has virtues that are important. And portraying him as a good, devoted husband and father is an important part of the subject. I think people often look at political figures as cartoon characters who aren't multidimensional, full human beings, and they are. Every politician, every famous statesperson, they're people. You know, they've got good things about them, bad things about them, and some of your political opponents can be very kind, good people in their daily lives, and I think it's important to remember that, and that was a central part of the story.
Yeah, I really I like that. I'm glad that you showed that because I think that's important. And I know this doesn't have anything to do with your book, William, but I know you are writing about politics. And I just felt like this past, well, even the year before, the election year, I just think that politics has taken an all-time low of how they are to each other. Both sides are at fault. The mudslinging and just low down how they treat each other. I wish they would go back to, the days where they would just have, after hours, would have a drink together. Like Ronald Reagan and, was it Tip O'Neill? After hours, they were friends. And it's like, why can't they be civilized to each other? I know that has something to do with your book, but
I agree. And that's a central focus of my nonfiction writing is about the tribalism, the partisanship, and how it's reached alarming levels that are very counterproductive for our country. I think it's a mix of factors, but I think it's really tribalism is at the core, and humans have always had a tribal dimension. That's nothing new, but I think in the age of social media and the age of modern media being different than it used to be, these systems, these echo chambers driven by algorithms where everybody receives what they already believe and they don't hear the other point of view in a fair way. I think it's a flywheel that is spinning faster and faster and just constantly ratcheting it up, where both sides look at the other side not as a somebody that they can debate with and disagree with, but ultimately move forward with. They see them as political enemies, and it's a very unfortunate trend for a variety of reasons.
Yes, I agree. excuse me, I just turned 68. So I remember, the old ways, in the 60s and 70s of politics and elections, but I never saw it sunk to such a low as it is now. And I don't think both sides are setting a good example. And I just wish that both sides would clean up their act and how they treat each other, because it's just so disrespectful. And, they want to attack each other. That's one thing. But when they start attacking families and children, there should be like some kind of ethical limitations. Don't attack the kids. Leave them out of it. They didn't ask for this. They didn't ask to be involved with this. And I always felt that way when they would go after the politicians' children. I just felt that they should just leave them out, because they had no choice but to get caught up in the political arena, and that's how I feel. Excuse me.
Totally agree with you, and real shame when the kids get swept up, and especially the kids. I mean, I think if you elect to enter the political arena, that's on you. Unfortunate, because the incredible dysfunction of that political arena means lots of quality people are not electing to get involved. But if you do decide to get involved, you know what you're getting into, eyes wide open, if you have any sense about you, and the consequences of being mischaracterized in the press is going to be a part of that. But yeah, kids don't choose that. They're kids. So I completely agree with you. They should be left out.
Yeah, I think the people are losing their kindness, their humanity, for each other. And in a world where we're so connected with our devices, I feel at the same time, William, that we're also disconnected, because people can go behind their keyboard and be really nasty to somebody, but they may not be like that person face to face. Although they're being pretty nasty down on the White House and in the Senate and, those chambers. There's a lot of nastiness going on, and I just, any of them hear me, I hope they stop. It's time to be civilized again to each other. You could agree to disagree, as they say. Excuse me. Where do you see the political climate heading towards? Do you see it as getting worse on both sides? The civility?
I think that on the one hand, there's a lot of trends that are moving in the wrong direction. I think that's true on both sides. I agree with what you said. I agree with what you said, Betsy. I think both sides are contributing. On the other hand, I think the single biggest factor of our political dysfunction is Donald Trump. And I don't think he's going to be reelected as president or stay in office. I think he's going to step down from the presidency in 2029 in January. And I think that has a very strong likelihood, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican president who steps in 2029, I think that has a very strong likelihood of helping. I think Trump he's not all good, he's not all bad, but he is uniquely bad in the sense of the negative impact he has on our political system. And so I am optimistic that while lots of overall trends are moving in the wrong direction, Trump leaving the scene, which I think will happen, 2029 will have a nice, strong, positive impact. And it's impossible to measure how big that will be because we don't know who the new president's going to be. But the likelihood it's a material positive impact on the country, I think, is quite high.
I was just thinking of President Trump. The way I hear him talk to some of these reporters, I'm flabbergasted. I truly am. That the way he talks to people, and it's like he has no filters. He just says whatever is on his mind, and I mean, some people might look at it as, oh, that's a good thing, but I don't know. I think as a president, you're a role model, no matter whether you're Republican or Democrat, and I think that you should really watch how you talk to people, because I feel like it sets the tone, for other people. And I'm just I'm shocked sometimes when I hear him, but that's my opinion, folks. He can be quite funny sometimes. I mean, he can be very comical. Excuse me, but also he could be very tart, very mean. He just could be very downright mean. But I also wanted to, before I forget, mention in your book, I like how you talk about Cheney in your book, and you could refresh my memory. In real life, did Rumsfeld get along with Reagan and the ones he worked with, Cheney?
He didn't work much with Reagan. He was an envoy to the Middle East for Reagan in the 80s, but was not in the administration. And that was, I think Rumsfeld was in his 50s when he was the envoy. He didn't know Reagan or work for him in a big way. He knew Cheney extremely well, and they were close allies and worked together on lots of important things in the Ford administration and then later in the Bush administration. That part of the story was rooted in the truth about their relationship. And to my knowledge, which is fairly extensive on this topic, they never had a fracture or a big. I'm sure they had moments of tension and disagreement, but they remained allies and friends throughout their time in government together.
What would you like the reader to take away from your book, William?
I would like the reader to take away two things primarily. Number one is, as I said earlier, our political leaders are human like us, and we need to remember that. And there's lots of implications of that. One of them is just be cautious, because we give all these people so much power, and they're just as human with all the foibles of humanity that other people are and other people have. So that's point one. And then point two, more specifically, when leaders, and I think this is very true in today's politics, and I think it was true with Rumsfeld, when they look at important issues through the lens of their own legacies, their own ego, their own personal accomplishments, it's very distortive. So it can cause people to look at things and make a big mistake. I think Rumsfeld was a very bright, smart person who was really good at getting things done. He turned around a big company. He held lots of positions. He was very competent and talented. But with Iraq, I think he made it about himself and about he was going to be the one to transform the Middle East. He was going to be the one that finally solved that problem. And it caused his judgment to degrade. By making it about him, he was not as intelligent about thinking it through. I say in the book, he saw everything clearly within his own field of vision, except for his self-image. That's where his judgment degraded. And I think it's really true. There's lots of very smart people who have very good judgment, but then when their own personal egos get involved, it causes lapses. And I think that's an important lesson from the book.
You know what? That is very true, and that's a very excellent point, because people, you can have someone in power who usually does have good judgment, but then they're like, "Oh, I'll fix this country. I'll, change them, make them more like us, or I could solve that problem," and not look at it from all sides, but just looking at it from their own ego. That's a very good point, William. Very true, and could get countries into a lot of trouble. Anywhere, any leader, when they look at it, through their own ego. I just really enjoyed reading this book. Can you tell us, congratulations on your podcast? I think it's great. I've listened to it. When did you start?
I started just a few months ago. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've watched it, and I said, wait, is that William Cooper that that I know? How did you decide to do a podcast?
I just thought it would be fun. I've enjoyed coming on your show and some other shows and being on the receiving end of interview questions. I just thought it would be fun to try hosting and getting to have fun, stimulating conversations with lots of people. Podcast is great. It's easy. Once you get everything set up, it's about 5 minutes total of work on top of the interview to upload and distribute. And so it's just a really fun, easy way to enjoy conversations and get things out there a little bit.
And
on top, yeah. More.
Where could people hear it? Your podcast?
It's on all the big platforms. So Books and More with William Cooper, Apple, Spotify, all of them. So if you Google it or look in your your podcast provider, it'll come right up.
Oh, that's cool. I always like to promote my guest, and all things that they do. So it's a great, way. I listen to other podcasts because when someone gets interviewed, and you can hear the same person be interviewed by several people, and you'll get several different viewpoints, different sides of that a guest. And the guest, you get to know the guest, really, in different ways when you listen to them being interviewed by different people. I have found that. Do you find that to be true?
Absolutely. Yep.
And what would you be working on next, William? Are you working on another book?
Yeah, I'm working on a book. The working title is The Power of Psychology, Insights from Buffett and Munger for Business and Life. And it's about Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger and their approach to psychology and how that played a big role in their success.
Wow, that sounds interesting. I've heard of Warren Buffett, but I'm not familiar with the other gentleman.
That was his main partner.
Oh,
Charlie Munger. Was his main partner.
That sounds interesting. I know that book will be excellent, just like your other books have been. And where can people purchase The Trial of Donald H. Rumsfeld, a novel by William Cooper?
Right now, Amazon's the main place to go. There's been some interesting distribution questions that have arisen. But right now, Amazon is the place to go. And then over time, it will be available on other platforms.
Oh, great. And I know the show will be posted possibly sometime in January, so past the holiday season. But I'll tell you, folks, this is a book that you could give any time of year to anyone who likes history, politics, enjoys a good book with a mystery, I think a little comedy mixed in. I really think it's an excellent gift to give to someone. And I do highly recommend reading The Trial of Donald H. Rumsfeld, a novel. And I gave your website. And is there anywhere else people can connect with you, William?
I think the website's the main place to go, will-cooper.com, and there's lots of, I've got some social media links on there if you want to follow me on Blue Sky or Substack, some others.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're on Substack. I follow some people on Substack. I'll have to look you up because I know you're. I know you're a great writer. Yeah, you know, I always encourage the audience. I always put the website if the guest has a website, go on their website because there's just so much about a guest I could say in the show. But you want to learn more about William Cooper, his wonderful work that he does, go on his website. And I highly recommend the book, listening to his show, Books and More. You learn a lot when you listen to different podcasts. I know I do. And I'm always want to keep my mind working, William, and keep it active. And I want to thank you so much for coming on my show today and spending time with me. I enjoyed talking to you again.
Thank you, Betsy. Really appreciate you having me. Great questions, and I always enjoy speaking with you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate your kind words. Thank you, everyone, for listening. All the information about William Cooper will be in the blog that Jeannie White writes. Jeannie's the station manager, writes the blog, produces the show. And I want to thank Lillian Caldwell, who makes this all possible, who's CEO of Passionate World Talk Radio Network. And I want to thank you, the listeners. Thank you for listening, subscribing. If you don't already subscribe to Chatting with Betsy, please do so. It's for free. I'm on Spotify, Spreaker, iHeart, Amazon Music, to name a few. I have great guests lined up for next year, for the beginning of next year. You don't want to miss it, any of my guests. I learned from my guests. And I appreciate you all listening. And if you want to follow me, I'm on Facebook, Betsy E. Wurzel, Wurzel. And as I always say at the end of my show, in a world where you can be anything, please be kind and shine your light bright, because we need it now more than ever before. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio Network, a subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Bye-bye now.